Everyone is speaking out about this as there's multiple massive question marks revolving around the Pittsburgh Penguins and their star players heading into next year. We're going to break down exactly what those are. And not only that, we're going to break down the prospect pool and what to expect from certain players this season, because some of the guys that were labeled as prospects last year are going to have to be relied upon to be stars on this team this year. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Penguins Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 68% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the Pittsburgh Penguins, this is the place to be for all your daily Pittsburgh Penguins content. And again, go down below, hit that free subscribe button. You don't want to miss a thing as the season inches closer to starting. It should be pretty interesting with some of the names that look like they're going to be on the team, some of the names that could be shipped out, but we're going to focus on some question marks heading into this season. There's been a lot of articles, a lot of reports about the Pittsburgh Penguins the last little while, and these are three questions, ironically, from Wes Crosby, writing for the NHL.com. Three questions facing the Pittsburgh Penguins this year. One of them is Evgeni Malkin's future. Is this it for Evgeni Malkin? It certainly seems that way. Kyle Dubas went out and said this. This is a direct quote, and I think this actually gives us some insight into what Kyle Dubas is planning to do with a lot of players on this team and this roster this season. I went on to say, I talked to Gino at the end of the year in the exit meeting and then followed up with him. I get it. It's his last year of his contract, and it's been a topic of discussion, but with the way we're going to approach it, we're going into the new year. Then, as I told Gino in his exit meeting, we're going to set basically what he's saying. I'm paraphrasing here. We're going to set checkpoints. So we're going to check in at certain points during the year. And I think that gives us a lot of insight into not only Malkin, but other guys on the team, like even Raquel, Rust. These are guys that some teams want. The Pittsburgh Penguins are one of the only teams selling in the league. So does it happen before the season? I still think there's one move to come before the season starts. But all of that to say, they're going to check in at certain points of the year. You know, American Thanksgiving. They're going to check in on, Christmas. They're going to check in on the Olympic break, the trade deadline, right? They're going to check in with these guys. Do you want to go to another team? So it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out and if certain guys are going to be leaving the team at different points in the year. So that's something, definitely to keep an eye on. Is this it for Malkin? Do you trade him, get some type of asset back from him? Do you want him to, play out his whole career as a Pittsburgh Penguin? Let me know in the comments how you feel about that. Would you rather see Malkin traded for some type of asset at the trade deadline if you know for certain he is not returning to, first of all, the NHL or the Pittsburgh Penguins? Or would you rather hold on to him, play it out, even if you miss the playoffs, just have him finish his career as a Pittsburgh Penguin? Let me know how you feel down below. I think if the return is right, I think you go that route personally, but let me know how you feel in the comments. The second thing is, can Crosby continue to defy time? I'm not even going to go into this. Sidney Crosby, yes, he is. I mean, he's one of the best players in the league still. He's a top 5 center in the league still at his age. Of course he is. Absolutely. He's going to put up 90 points again this year. It doesn't matter how bad the Pittsburgh Penguins are on the ice, let alone on paper. He's going to have a fantastic year. So that's just something I think that is going to happen. Now, go check out the rest of this article as well. I'm going to link it in the description. It was a good read, and there's a lot to it as well. But the third thing, and I think this is one of the most interesting things as well, besides the prospects, which we're going to get to in a second, is how does Dan Muse follow Mike Sullivan? Mike Sullivan, a guy who won multiple Stanley Cups here in Pittsburgh, a guy who is a coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins for 10 seasons, finally let go. He instilled a culture here. How do you instill a new culture or continue some of the same things that Mike Sullivan brought to the table? How do you continue to do that? How do you move forward? I think that's a very interesting thing. And obviously Dan Muse was hired to replace Mike Sullivan, and who is now the coach of the New York Rangers. Dan Muse was with the New York Rangers, so a little bit of a swap there. And obviously still considered one of the best coaches in the league. That is Mike Sullivan. But Dan Muse is a really, really good coach, and a lot of people are very excited that he is in Pittsburgh, including Stanley Cup champion with the Pittsburgh Penguins, Nick Bonino. And he went on to say he's just a good person. I think that he's always that's always the most important thing, and he just really cares about his job. You don't meet too many guys who work harder than Dan Muse. So he's going to try his best. And I think this is a really good bridge, this hiring between, and we'll see how it plays out. I'm very curious to see how it plays out. But this is a very good bridge between the older guys, and it's weird to say the older guys, and Sidney Crosby, Evgeni Malkin, Kris Letang, and some of the younger guys like Rutger McGroarty, for example, Ville Kuivinen, right, who's going to be coming up and probably playing some NHL time this year. We'll get into that in a second. But I feel like he's the perfect coach to bridge that gap. So what's he going to do with this lineup? Not sure yet. Is the lineup even going to look like this? This is updated on Puckpedia. This did not look like this a little while ago, but we'll see what happens in training camp because I don't think it's going to look exactly like this. And for my money, I would split up Rust, Crosby, and Raquel. I don't know if you could have that much of a power line considering what's left of the lineup. So we'll see what happens. See what happens in terms of, Kyle Dubas. Does he make a move before the season starts? It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. Now, another thing I wanted to cover from Wes Crosby as well as the top prospects for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, I'm going to cover this in another video as well, but the Pittsburgh Penguins were ranked by Daily Faceoff as the 18th best prospect pool in the league. 18th, not great. Definitely going to talk about that in another video, but nonetheless, they do have some prospects that are coming up through the system that are exciting. And the first one, of course, Rucker McGroarty. It looks like he could actually spend some time on the first line again heading into this year. He's going from prospect to this guy's got to produce right away at the NHL level next season. That is the expectation, I think. Obviously, with the Penguins last year, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points in 8 NHL games. Not bad. With the Baby Pens in 60 games, he had 39 points. Really good production for first year in the AHL. Didn't mind that whatsoever. But he's going to have to find a prominent role in this team this coming season. That's going to be huge. 21 years old. Obviously, I think he's going to make the roster out of camp. We'll see what happens with that. Of course, there's some guys that could surprise, like obviously a Ville Koivunen, which we'll get to in a second. But those are his stats the last couple of years. Obviously, last year coming straight out of school, his first year pro hockey at 21 years old. So obviously still a lot of learning to be done there. I'm not going to panic if I was a Penguins fan yet. But again, you can do whatever you want. Let me know how you feel in the comments. But one guy that really surprised me, and maybe he shouldn't be surprising, and this is just who he is, I'm very excited to see what he does next year, is a guy that I believe should be in the NHL, maybe even over a Rucker McGroarty, and that is Ville Koivunen. And obviously, he was traded from the Carolina Hurricanes 2 seasons ago at the trade deadline in 2024. And in 8 NHL games, when he was called up at the end of the season last year, he had 7 assists and 7 points in those 8 games. Really good point production, and really good point production in the AHL. In 63 games, he had 56 points. He's more of a playmaker. We saw that he was threading the needle down there in the AHL. When he was sent back down in the playoffs, he was making guys look absolutely stupid in the AHL. He was unbelievable. So again, he was recalled on March 29th. Basically finished the season with the Pittsburgh Penguins, went back down, looked really good in the AHL when he was sent back down, and he was playing with Evgeni Malkin. So I thought that was pretty interesting. He can really, he's a great playmaker. I'm excited to see what he's going to do next season. You can see some of his point production the last little while. And obviously he's bounced around the AHL for a couple seasons, but he's certainly figured it out at the pro level in North America. And it's starting to mirror some of his point production from overseas as well. So love to see that. And of course, last on the list, and we're going to cover a bunch of other prospects in the prospect pool as a whole in another video, is Ben Kindle. And I'm very excited to see what he does in training camp. I don't think he's going to make the NHL this year, but at least offensively, I know a lot of people are picking on his size and all that. I don't know if size matters if you play the right way and you can put up points and you can score. The hardest thing to do in the NHL is score goals, and this kid can do that. So I'm excited to see what he can do at next season and training camp, because he's going to be there. Don't think he'll make the team, but what does he do in the WHL when he's eventually probably sent back this season? But let me know how you feel about some of these questions. Answer some of these questions in the comments, because the conversation always continues there. And let me know how you feel down there in the comments about everything we covered today. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything Pittsburgh Penguins.